A very good morning to all the delegates, young friends. Actually, there is an important effort and then a new attempt what we are making is to use the technology also as part of this international conference. And courtesy Rajiv ji's support, guidance, and also a linkage to an eminent personality, I'm very happy that we have come to a stage where we are able to get a live presentation from USA. And I request you people to take note of this, and then at the end of the conference this evening, you can just give your critical feedback, because using technology also is an important aspect of the new way of meeting of people and exchange of thoughts. And I congratulate my systems administration team for making efforts after a dry run and all the things. So I wish you all the best to my technical team. Okay, sir. We welcome you.
The Indus University and Dr. Raji Malhotra of Infinity Foundation for inviting me to give this talk. Are you able to hear me clearly? Yeah, okay. So before I start, I don't know, maybe Jiten, you can just tell me what is the background of the audience? Is everybody from humanities or sciences? They're engineers, they're journalists? So that I know which might have asked this before. Okay. Okay. Excellent. All right. So we can go to the next slide. You should have a slide titled Science and Technology Issues. Okay. See, I'm going to address this task of placing the ancient Indian science and technology in the context of contemporary science. In other words, generally, Indian science and technology in ancient times would be a historical study, but I want to actually place it in the context of contemporary science and even the future of science. The reason I'm saying that is, as you see on the slide in your screen, there are a number of science and technology issues that everyone is aware of. I've just listed some of them: depletion of natural resources, energy crisis. There is a multi-hundred-billion-dollar search for alternative energies. There's environmental pollution, global warming. The other species displaced increasingly as we deforest the planet, and many species are getting extinguished. And this is bad for the natural ecological cycle. And there are many ethical issues in technological applications, as in genetic manipulation of food, ethics in genetic engineering, and all of this stuff. And there is also this idea that the idea that science is the engine of progress has kind of kept humanities in the background, which includes philosophy and theology. And some feel that this contributes to the erosion of values because science does not have any integral role for values. Is everybody able to hear me clearly? Put your right hand up, please. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Science has no place for integrally for values, the following sense that every school child learns basic physics. A child knows that if you throw a stone with a particular force at somebody's face, you know what impact it will cause on the person's face. It can calculate, but nothing in the equations will tell the child whether it is good or not throw the stone. So, as someone famously put it, science is concerned with is and is nots, not with oughts and ought nots. So these are the issues in science and technology. Then there's also issues in religion. Do you have the whole thing there, Jatin? The full screen is there, religion issues. There are people, it appears like religion divides people rather than unify them. There are interfaith conflicts, Muslim, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, like that. And there are interdenominational conflicts too, even within the same religion, Protestants and Christian, or what is Catholics, or Shiites and Sunnis, or Shaktas and Shaivites, Vaishnavites, Hinduism, like that. So people ask the question, why is religion not unified? And there's also this idea that religion is otherworldly. It's not concerned with the world of matter where people live and people suffer. And religion always brings in extra natural elements, soul and God. But whereas science is committed to naturalism, and you know, science says matter is all what we know around us, and you know, on that, does religion have anything to say about matter? So these are actually general issues about religion. And then I have a slide, issues that are specific to Hinduism. Jatin, you got to that slide? Is that a full slide or it has no lines on it? Okay. So it must have 4 lines on it. One issue specific to Hinduism is the dating of Indian thought, ancient Indian thought. As you all know, the Indian historical records talk about yuga cycles, kalpas. People think this is mythology, and this doesn't even make sense, millions and millions of years. So even though the word Purana means history in Sanskrit, Brits definitely said that, the British, and that these cannot be actually history. This is just nonsense mythology. And then there is also this issue that Berkeley philosopher John Searle said, that the Eastern thought has this duty that out of their theological, metaphysical setup, they have to extract what is called philosophy in the contemporary academic sense, say as analytical philosophy goes, you know, um, with modern issues about epistemology and ontology. What do they have to say? And then there is this issue of antecedents to Greek thought. We believe in Hinduism that we are before Greeks, but the way Brits developed the history, it, uh, it looks like whatever is there in Indian thought, it's all coming from the Greek thought. And then there is the issue of Indian thought with all its heavy theology seems particularly less connected to science than other religions even. And these are the issues that we are facing in the background. And I'm bringing in, next slide. So you should have no lines there, right, Jatin? You have 3 lines? Oh, is that the title, Special Features of Bhagavad Sankhya? Okay, so the first line is trans-denominational, acceptable to all denominations of Hinduism. You have that? Okay, you can actually click until you get to alternative to energy, can integrate values within science. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 2, 8 lines. Okay, thanks. By the way, I started around 9:10. If it's a 1 hour talk, I'll go up to 10:10. Is it okay, Jatin? I mean, no, 10:10 by my clock, 10:40 by your clock. Yeah, 10:40. See, I started at 9:10. That was like 9:40 your time. So I'll go up to 10:40, I'm saying. If it's not okay, let me know. And I'm going to talk about something called Bhagavad Sankhya. This Bhagavad Sankhya is different from Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya, and although, and I'm not going to go into the details of how they are different here, and so although they also talk about 24 elements, they are a completely different system. And in addition, it's also very different from the Greek notion of 5 elements, because Sankhya has got 24 elements. The Greeks have only 5 elements, so mostly 4. And the Sankhya, and especially the Pancha Mahabhuta, this is actually acceptable to all denominations of Hinduism. And I want to argue that specifically this version of Sankhya has got scientifically testable concepts of matter. And that although it's theistic, it is compatible with naturalism. In other words, to talk about matter as a closed system. In science, we study matter as a closed system. So, you know, uh, and Bhagavad Sankhya is compatible with naturalism for a long way, at least to the distance we need to get to the next stage in science. And therefore, it can actually lead to an alternative material science. And I'm going to say that that's based on a concept called objective semantic information. That's an idea that I have developed through my work in macroscopic quantum mechanics. And is there any physicist here? Put your hand up, please. Oh, great. Okay. So as the physicists would know, currently quantum mechanics is microscopic. It is applied to the realm of atoms and subatomic particles. And sometimes we do work in mesoscopic level. We're talking about, putting C60 type of atoms into superposition and bigger clusters. But usually it does not apply to the macroscopic level. Although starting from about 80s to now, there is a field called macroscopic quantum mechanics that started by the Nobel laureate Leggett and others, and that's different from the work I'm doing. And so, to briefly, currently quantum mechanics is for the atomic systems, and by correspondence principle, it treats the macroscopic level as classical. And for non-physicists, what it means is that quantum mechanics deals with atoms and molecules, electrons and protons, but rocks and apples and tennis balls, these are classical. So if you drop a tennis ball, it's thought that Newton's mechanics applies, quantum mechanics does not. And if you drop an electron, if you can think in terms of dropping an electron, its motion is governed by quantum mechanics. Okay. Or if you don't want to think in terms of dropping an electron, if it's emitted, say by a thermionic emitter. All right. So we'll go to the next one. The prevailing concept of matter in science. You can click once within. So the first line is that there's some sound coming in the background. Stop it. So the world conceived in terms of objects arranged in space and time. You see, that is the fundamental idea in physics. What I mean by that, I'm just going to give a little thing, non-physicists. It's like, suppose you ask somebody to go inside the next room and say, tell me what you see. And they come back and say, oh, well, there are, many chairs, each located at this location. You can give exact coordinates. There's one more object in between, those two rows of, chairs. Maybe that's the camera and stuff like that. One can just simply plot the positions of various objects in the room and say that. And someone else can look at it and come and say, oh, that's an auditorium. So the first description, can call it physical information. How objects are placed in space and time. The second, you can call it as semantic information. Oh, it's an auditorium. Physics so far has no room for semantic information. And what it does with physical information is that's also subjective. In one sense, it's same as semantic information, but it objectivizes. And because physics is dealing with objects arranged in space and time, the next one, next click, position is fundamental and the only observation in science. This is a very difficult point for you to understand. I'll just quote John Bell. Next one, Jatin. Do you have a yellow coat? Hello? You can't leave the place, Jatin. Yeah, you have to be there. So so you can see John Bell saying in physics the only observations we must consider are position observations, if only positions of instrument pointers. In other words, even if you go to Large Hadron Collider, and even though they're studying Higgs boson and other exotic particles, the operations that they do on big dials, and of course nowadays the results are recorded on digital tapes, computerized. But if you were to see it, you will see it in the form of either spots on a photographic plate, or you will see it as meter pointer needles. Just like if you're going in the car is going at 60 miles an hour, but the only evidence you have of it is that there is a needle on the speedometer that points to 60. So you may be surprised, but even the most sophisticated, automatic robotic surgery that's done in the most expensive hospital in India, that science is based only on position observation. It's very difficult to show how that is true, but you can take it for granted that that's what it is. So this idea of position in the next slide, progressive, Jatin, next slide please, progressive weakening of position in science. Then you can put 4 lines, you can put 4 clicks, in fact 5 clicks you can put. And you see that Newton's mechanics, you had this idea that there is position is an absolute location in the space, and the distance between 2 positions, which is called the metric or space interval, is absolute. In other words, we believe there is a world there and there are locations there, and the distance between those locations is absolute. That's Newton's mechanics. When he came to statistical mechanics of Boltzmann and Maxwell, the position was no longer in the external world, even though the gas is, consisting of large number of moving molecules, the gas itself is stationary, and therefore the state of the gas is a position in phase space. That's little physics for you, but just I hope you'll get some, at least a little bit of it. And then that position, the evolution of that position in phase space is governed by not laws of motion, but entropy. That means, the idea of position became a little weak. It's not really position in the conventional sense. That's what I'm trying to say. So in other words, let me put it in simple terms. If an apple is falling and you say the apple's position is changing, that is motion. But when you came to statistical mechanics, you're talking about, molecules moving, but the gas is not moving, and the entire gas is changing state, and that state is taking place in an abstract phase space. So already position became abstract. Then you had field theory, and you have something like a magnetic field, and that became an infinity of points. And at each point, it has electrical and magnetic strength, and even though the magnet is here, it will act at a distance locally by the electrical and magnetic field strengths. That was a very funny thing. The magnet is here. Now, people would have thought in common sense that it is somehow attracting an ion filing at that point, but Maxwell said, no, it's actually a field and it's acting at each point locally. That's a very peculiar idea they gave. And by the time we came to relativity theory, absolute location, there is a reason why I'm talking about this position. You'll see that in a few slides down. The absolute location actually became eliminated, and there was only a space-time manifold. So space and time formed a continuum. And if you have 2 world lines, only when they interact, you actually get an event. And the distance actually was no longer absolute. Even before relativistic physics, if there is, a distance, let's say that the length of a table, as long as we use the same scale, we'll get the same number. Of course, if I use a meter, I may say it's 1 meter. And if you use feet, you may say it's 3 feet. But if we use the same scale, we would get the same number. But in relativistic physics, even if you use the same scale, if you were in relative motion, 2 observers would get 2 different numbers for the same distance. So distance itself became, frame dependent, let's say like that. So therefore, position as a reality was no longer having much meaning. And then we came to quantum mechanics. Jatin, you see that line, quantum mechanics, no absolute location? In quantum mechanics, what happened is objects don't have position unless you measure them. Whoa, what does that mean? So I have one more click, Jatin. So here is Abraham Pace, a well-known particle physicist, recollecting in reviews of modern physics, that during one walk, Einstein suddenly stopped, turned to me, and asked me whether I really believed that the moon exists only when I look at it. Now, why would Einstein ask that question? That does the moon exist only when you look at it? Because that is the implication of quantum mechanics if it's applied to the macroscopic level. Quantum mechanics says that something like an apple or a planet does not exist in a particular location except when you look at it. This is, what is called the so-called superposition and eigenstate debate. We will not go into that details, but so basically the next slide, you have the title, there is a crisis in the Western concept of matter. And what is this crisis? You can click 3 times. And the crisis is that if objects are positioned only at the point of measurement, where and how do they exist prior to measurement? Because they have to exist in order for you to measure. So what is that entity called electron? Eddington called it something mysterious doing we don't know what. So, this electron, how and what is its mode of existence such that when you measure it as a localized position like any object, but otherwise it doesn't. So people say it's probability cloud, stuff like that. But whatever it is, there is quantum mechanics led to immense pragmatic success. Some more clicks, that in immense pragmatic, up to profound conceptual problems, you can click it. So immense pragmatic success in quantum theory, you can say, what is all this quantum theory? Why should we worry about it? But this bulb, the tube light that's on top of your head, that's working according to quantum mechanics. Radio, TV, computers, your CD-ROM player, DVD, your remote control, it's all mechanics. The laundry detergent that you get, which actually is, it has got more froth than the previous version, that's because of quantum mechanics. In fact, 33% of world's gross national product is due to technologies arising out of quantum theory. So it's an extraordinarily successful theory pragmatically, but it's got profound conceptual problems. Next slide. Here's the quantum mechanics. You can click it. Is that readable? Or is that too small? Okay, I'll just read the first few slides. There is no doubt that the stage, I have got 100 years of statements by Nobel laureates in quantum mechanics from 1890 to 2010. That's more than 100 years, saying that we don't understand quantum mechanics, but they are Nobel Prize winners in quantum mechanics. So there is no doubt that the stage that quantum physics has reached is beyond the grasp of even its creators. That's Max Planck in 1935. 1940, Max Born, Nobel laureate. At present, the theory is more intelligent than us. It knows why it works. We do not. Okay. For last slide, Richard Feynman, Jatin. That's one. For fifth quote. I think it is in 1965, Feynman said, another Nobel laureate in quantum physics. I think it is safe to say no one understands quantum mechanics. Do not keep saying to yourself if you can possibly avoid it. But how can it be like that? Because you will go down the drain into a blind alley from which nobody has yet escaped. Nobody knows how it can be like that with respect to quantum mechanics. So what exactly is this problem? So next slide you can skip. Go to the next slide. 100 years of quantum mechanics. Yes? हाँ जी बोलिए. Okay. I see. Oh. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is am I making any sense to the audience so far? Please put your right hand up. Please put your left hand up. Okay. Well, okay, so let's go to next slide. Well, the one that says scholarly appreciations, Brian Josephson. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that, you can read the, is it readable? Yeah, so you read it. So you can see that here is another Nobel laureate in quantum mechanics, and he says, so you see that there is actually a problem in science, and we are solving that problem in science by applying this Bhagavad Sankhya model. And that, in that sense, we are talking about the historical ideas of concepts of Indian science and technology in the modern context. And you can see this Nobel laureate saying that maybe this is how we should be doing science, because he accepts our work. So next one, you can skip other scholarly appreciations, and you can skip the next one too, Stucky, because we don't have time. Jatin, you can just skip all the appreciations and go to Brown University and skip. Well, I just want to briefly say that actually our work is part of um, you know, the curriculum in North American universities. Brown University is Ivy League university, and one of our papers actually was part of the curriculum for a MS level course in philosophy of quantum mechanics. And next one, room for the Vedic conception. Okay, I'll say this. Now you can ask me, maybe quantum mechanics has this problem. How are you saying that you are connecting the Vedic ideas to this very contemporary problem? And this is, you can give about 5 clicks. And basically, you can go up to the click which says direct link to the Vedic concept of matter. Jatin? Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clicks. All right. So the sum and substance of this slide is that if you ask people what is matter, people will say matter is something that's tangible. I can see it, I can touch it, I can feel it. But up until now, science has tried to conceive this matter independent of our perception. You can see Einstein, that's an Einstein quote. The programmatic aim of all physics is a description of physical reality as it is thought to exist independent of our acts of observation. In other words, although you began with the idea, oh, let's study matter, let's not worry about anything else because matter is tangible, but the scientific conception of matter was something that exists apart from our perception. And that idea is the reason, according to me, why modern science has run into this crisis about the concept of matter. And you will have to go back and make matter tangible, which means you'll have to conceive of matter in terms of how, our smelling it and tasting it and touching it and hearing it. And that's really the Vedic concept of matter, because it comes in terms of Panchabhutas and Tanmatras. Okay, I won't discuss it more. Go to the next slide, and then you can click, about right up to the instrumental view, shut up, calculate interpretation. And I wanted to discuss that. I'll click that. It goes up to, is there a quantum real state? And go to the next one, what is OSI? And do about 4 or 5 clicks, or even 5, 6 clicks. And then I'll just basically say that you will see 2 ideas, absolute location and direction. And that's the idea. Let me just briefly tell you that in common sense thinking and in science, when you say an object is there, you mean a particular location. And that's how science has developed, and I explained that in the beginning. That idea of object having location became progressively weak, and now it broke with quantum mechanics. But in ancient Indian system of thought, the location was thought in terms of direction. When you say an object is there, you mean a direction, not actually location. And it turns out that means that if you think that object is, the position is not a location, it turns out that it is actually what is called the Euclidean space R3, not the right model for it. So in our institute, we are developing another model that's called actually vector bundles. I won't go into that. And usually in that, what happens, each position has got a direction. So the Vedic concept of space is in terms of 8 directions, Ashtadik. It's not in terms of location. So that actually, in a very powerful way, can get connected to modern physics. And that's the work we are doing. And let's go to the next one. YSI has applications in all fields of science and technology. YSI is objective semantic information. Objective semantic information is connected to the idea of position as direction. But I can't explain that fully. And next, do you have a color slide? ISIS project in science. Okay, so I won't explain it, but you can see different fields: cognitive science, mathematics, communication engineering, computer science, medicine, biology, chemistry. All of this we are doing. And next slide. BTech in ISIS, do you see that? Yeah, you can put that whole slide. So that's, we have developed a complete curriculum for Bachelor of Technology in Semantic Information Sciences and Technology. As you can see, semester 1, semester 2, semester 3, 4, like that, up to 8 semesters. It's a very revolutionary course in semantic information. And that is actually in engineering and science and technology, which can directly teach actually Vedic science, but in contemporary terms. Okay, next one. You have the John Bell interview. I should be done in another 2-3 minutes. Do you see that? So John Bell said once Maharishi Mahesh Yogi went to CERN, and John Bell was saying, then Omni magazine asked him, John Bell is a famous quantum theorist, physicist. Why did you meet with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi? You know, people will think that quantum mechanics has something to do with God and soul and consciousness. You should have met him. Then he replied, you can read now. Now the test for a scientist of whether these people, that is Maharishi, are religious people, have something to contribute to science is to ask them not to interpret what we have done already, but to tell us what is going to happen next. In other words, he's saying this idea that, oh, science found a plane, oh, we had plane before, science talked. So you will see a lot of people in India say, oh, E by M ratio is in Rig Veda, or Ravana had Pushpaka Vimana, Ashwatthama had Brahmastra. That's rightly Bell is saying, don't give us that kind of a thing that whatever we find you have. If you're better than us, then whatever we cannot find, you find. So I showed you a fundamental problem in science that has been around for 100 years. Right? Oh, what happened? Should I stop? Oh, they're appreciating my point. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. So this actually, if you go to the next one, Prabhupada, who set up the Krishna Consciousness movement, and you will see a room conversation. There was one Dr. Sharma who was a PhD in molecular biology, and he was telling Prabhupada, there is a lot of scientific data in our ancient scriptures, which I told them, that is his American friends, he was a PhD from America, that if they go through from their own point of view, they'll find a lot of things in Puranas, Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada cuts him off. Prabhupada says, no. Apart from Vedas and Puranas, scientifically, modern science, according to their way, we can convince. In other words, what Bell is saying in 78, Prabhupada said in 77, 1 year before. He said, no, we don't want to actually. He says that Puranas, you may not believe the authority. I may not believe. But scientific truth. So he told us, you do this thing in science. And so this, and then there is this verse in Bhagavatam. Prabhupada wrote more than 70 books, but this particular verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 3, chapter 26, text 34, it talks about the concept of space, And Prabhupada, you can see in yellow. Jatin, you have that slide, next Sanskrit one? And then the purport Prabhupada wrote, this verse is the potential basis of great scientific research work. Actually, this is the only place he said in more than 70 books, and we have actually worked on it. So next one, references. Jatin, so you can see I put some references here. We have more than 30 publications in peer-reviewed journals. You can see these are all published in places like Springer Verlag, American Institute of Physics, and Journal of Consciousness, things like that. And we have lots of actual scientific papers published. Next, summary. So you can click this, and this is the last slide. I think I have one more slide. The summary of my talk is that so far science has encroached upon religious territory, it said, but religion, and essentially, let's face it, Indian tradition is a religious tradition. Everything that comes from different, branches of Hinduism. And, if you want to meet science, you have to meet it on their own territory, namely that is matter. And this work we are doing, it is my claim that while the Greek idea of 5 elements can be pre-scientific, it's thought as pre-scientific, and they think Indian thought is also pre-scientific, we can actually show that Indian thought is post-scientific. Okay, so material science need not be materialistic science. That's our slogan. And we have done this work for 35 years. And if any of you are interested, you're more than welcome to participate, support us. And that's my email address is there. And next slide. Thank you. That's it.
Sir, this is again Giridhar, the convener of the conference from Indus side, sir.
Yes, sir.
Many thanks to you that you took trouble to sort of interact with us over mail and then finally spent a lot of time in dry running this and then making this possible, because we at Indus and of course in India, we are all putting the baby steps towards bringing in technology also in various activities like this. And this, your support and effort has given us great confidence to move ahead in these kind of things. And then Rajiv ji is here, and I request Rajiv ji to speak for a minute. And then we are all quite excited, especially as an institution with flagship program of engineering technology, that you have come up with an excellent undergraduate program itself, which is really bringing the real proof through science of what we are as Indians and Indian philosophy. Thank you very much, sir. Really.
Thank you.
Please, sir, Rajiv.
Make this undergraduate program a reality. Anyway, we'll listen to Rajiv ji.
Namaskar, Ravi ji. I have followed your work in different ways since the 90s, and a great admirer of yours. I think this university will be blessed to have your ideas and your teachings introduced here. So maybe this talk is just the beginning of a longer collaboration. I also would like to meet you. Maybe I'll come over to California or you come over to Princeton, so we can discuss in length some of the work you are doing. I have also been tracking people like Henry Stapp for 20 years, and Amit Goswami, whom you know. But I have a lot of respect for your work in particular, because you are actually applying the Vedic knowledge to construct a future physics, whereas either people are explaining what's already known using Vedic science, or kind of bombastic statements, but you're actually doing real physics. So I congratulate you with that, and I hope we stay in touch. Namaskar.
Thank you. Once again, Rajiv ji and Indus University and Giridhar ji, thanks for inviting me to give this talk. I enjoyed it, and I hope the audience also didn't think it's a total waste. And hopefully we'll be in touch, as Rajiv ji said. Thanks a lot, and thanks Jatin ji for all your kind efforts. Yeah, thank you. Bye.